Okay, so it is 7:05. This is the Ad Hoc Marijuana Advisory Committee and our first public hearing to discover from the town what they do and do not want with regards to marijuana in Madison. I am going to share my screen, play a very brief PowerPoint presentation, and then hopefully we can get to a conversation with members of the community. We've got several subject matter experts here: Catherine Barden, Captain Harkins. We've got Aaron Mannix from Planning and Development. We've got Sherry Cody for Economic Development. So let's get started. I am going to share my screen and start the PowerPoint. Well, all right. Can you see the PowerPoint now?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Good evening. Welcome, everybody. Like I said before, this is the March 15th public hearing of the Ad Hoc Marijuana Advisory Committee. Our membership. First, I'd like to thank our citizen members at large. These are people who stepped up and volunteered to be representatives of the community at large. Aaron Gerard, Jack Dobson, and David Courtney, thank you all for participating in this process. We all appreciate it. We have a variety of boards and commissions represented by volunteers. We've got Fillmore McPherson from the Board of Finance, Marianne Connolly from the Board of Education, Giselle McDowell from Planning and Zoning, Mark Steffen from Economic Development, Bob Zeller, Madison Youth and Family Services, Ann Rumberger, Board of Police Commissioners, and myself representing the Board of Selectmen. And then we have our staff who, in all things that happen in town, are the ones who really make it happen. Paula Carabetta for HR, Catherine Barden for Madison Youth and Family Services, Captain Harkins, MPD, Aaron Mannix, the town planner, Trent Joseph, our public health director, and Lauren Rhines, who is our town risk manager. Before we get started, just a couple of definitions that may get thrown around at some point in the process and in the conversation. We're talking about legalized marijuana, and part of that is the legal ability to sell it. So what is a legal establishment under the new law? And that is defined as a producer, a cultivator, a micro cultivator, product manufacturer, food and beverage manufacturer, packaging, a dispensary, a retailer, delivery service, this is a new one, and then transporter. Another idea that gets tossed around is this 1 in 25,000 cap. So the state has said that at least until June 30th of 24, any town can only have one retailer and one micro cultivator per 25,000 residents. So we would fall into that. We have about 18,000 residents. So we would fall into that 1 in 1. That may get expanded sooner. The legislature can do whatever they want. It may get deferred later, but right now, as it stands, that would be the maximum under any circumstance that Madison could have, should we decide as a community to have retail presence in Madison. Potency. So this is an interesting one, and I think it's important because it's changed over the years. The law allows for a 30% THC content in the dried flower, the dried marijuana flower, or 60% for concentrates. As a bit of historic perspective on that, in 1980, the average potency was just over 2%. In 1990, it was just over 3%. And in 2003, it was almost 6.5%. So we're talking about marijuana and potency and THC that is fundamentally different than what your parents or yourself or your grandparents may have experienced, depending on where you are in your journey in life. That doesn't mean that everything sold is going to be this potent, but this is what is going to be allowed. This is the product that could be out in the community. And then the allowable forms of marijuana. There is, of course, the plant. There are allowances for THC to be included in drinks and foods. There is allowances for concentrates, and these can be waxes, tinctures, and oils, and also pre-filled cartridges. So there's a bunch of different form factors that are going to be allowed or are currently allowed in the state of Connecticut. So what are we charged with doing? The Board of Selectmen got together and decided that we needed to have a plan as a community. And as we often do as selectmen, we reach back out to the community and all of the stakeholders on matters of importance, and we seek input from the community so that the rulemaking we move forward with is informed on the topic. So this group is charged with determining regulations and recommending regulations on town-owned or public property. This can include fines, penalties. We were able to create a municipal sales tax on the sale of marijuana from establishments in Madison. We can set up specific zoning rules around the sale and use of marijuana in Madison. We're also an employer, and so we've got to come up with regulations for usage by municipal employees. Of course, law enforcement has been working on this new reality for quite some time, and they'll be coming up with guidelines, and we're going to want to make sure that we just check in with law enforcement and that what they're working on is in alignment with what the Board of Selectmen is thinking and what the community is thinking. And of course, they will be enforcing the laws that are on the books from the state. And then I think maybe the biggest one is our policies and programs around families and youth in Madison. And we've got social services in town in the form of Madison Youth and Family Services. They're very, very aware of all of this and have been very active in responsible use and prevention strategies and education strategies. And I think that that's going to be an important part of what we do moving forward. I think of the charge breaking out into three big buckets. There's a public policy bucket, and these are the policies that will affect residents on a day-to-day basis. There is the public education part of this, and I think that we should, as a town, embrace our role in educating the community on everything about legal marijuana so that people can make informed personal choices. And then the internal municipal policy. What are we going to do with our employees? How are we going to manage our employees? With regards to public policy, I see this covering the regulations around commercial operations. Are we going to allow it? Where are we going to allow it if we do? Establishing a sales tax, and should we designate in advance where those revenues might be used? Sort of a lockbox for those funds, or do we let them just go into the general fund and we spend them wherever we decide to spend them? And then how are we going to regulate consumption on town property? And that extends also to outdoor spaces that are commercial, private spaces. Think outdoor restaurant. We have the ability to regulate those outdoor spaces as well. Public education. What exactly is legal? And then what are the consequences of breaking the law? Where is it allowed and not allowed? What is MPD doing? What steps are they taking? And what is our outreach strategy? We've got a director of public health and a strong public health department, and we've got a strong social services department, youth and family services. And I think that we need to work with them in concert with the efforts of the school district to make sure, again, that we're informing people so that they can make responsible choices for themselves. And then Madison is an employer. There's a variety of things. Much of this work will be internal, but we have HR policy implications. We need to add marijuana as an intoxicant into our policies. We've got different classes of work. So our drivers that are CDL holders, they have regulations that will continue, that they'll have to live up to, and these are set by the state and the federal government. So regardless of the legality, they're going to have to live up to standards that were already in place. And then we have to make sure that whatever we're doing isn't in conflict with our employees that are members of our various unions. So marijuana is legal in Connecticut. The state has afforded us the opportunity to come up with some regulations on how marijuana is used and sold or not in the town of Madison. They are still controlling most of the legislation, but to the extent that we have the ability to determine local rules and regulations, we need to do that and do it rather quickly, so that we're prepared for marijuana being more ubiquitous in the community. And in order to get that done, we need to hear from you. We need to hear from the public. We are a government of the people. Quite literally, you are the government. And so for us to do a good job, we need your input. We need to hear your voice. This is the first public hearing of this group. We will take what we learned tonight, try to incorporate that into some sort of policy, roughly aligned around the 3 buckets that I outlined. And then we will bring it back to you and let you know this is how we took your information and moved it forward. So with that, I would very much like for the conversation part of this public hearing to begin. I have prepared a Zoom poll. I've never actually started one before, but I'm going to. The poll is anonymous. It's 7 questions. There's no essays in it. And if you could take the time to complete the poll, we would be grateful, because it's just going to help us and set our path through this charge. You can reach us, that is everybody who is a member of this committee, through marijuana@madisonct.org. And as always, you can reach the Board of Selectmen through bos@madisonct.org. So I am going to go back now to the Zoom. We should see everybody's face again. Did I do that well? Did I do that right? All right. All right. So I'm going to start the poll. People should be able to see it, and just go ahead and fill it in at your leisure. That would be great. But we've got a few people on, and if you have a question or you would like some further explanation, please just raise your hand and we'll get you on live. I don't see anyone raising their hand. Patrick, thank you for the call out on the typo. My spell checker didn't catch that. No more.
Yes, thank you. I have a question. We could do this at our committee meeting, but while the public is thinking about how they're going to say it, I'll go ahead and ask this question just for all of us. And this is for Captain Harkins, I guess. Is there a way that if the police stops if a policeman out on patrol stops a car that is weaving around the roadway, is there a way for the officer to determine if this driver is under the influence? If it's alcohol, there are breathalyzer tests that we've been around for years, but is there an equivalent test for marijuana impairment?
Well, yes, sir. So right now they have what's called what we're looking to develop, and police departments throughout the state are, is called a DRE, a drug recognition expert. We're in the process of right now trying to establish a DRE. There's also a program that's called ARIDE. It's an acronym for Advanced Roadside Impairment program. So where the officers have more training in detecting whether someone's under the influence. I think one of the things that we have to, in stopping a car, and based upon what the officer is seeing prior to stopping the car is weaving, all of that is captured on the dashboard camera. The officer is still going to conduct field sobriety tests if the person has slurred speech, bloodshot eyes, etc. And our sobriety tests that they conduct, the walk and turn, the one-legged stand, the nystagmus test. The building blocks of probable cause, coupled with instead of doing a breathalyzer test, they'll have the opportunity. The officer has the option of utilizing a urine test. Now, I know that THC can be captured in the system up to 30 days. So sometimes the urine test is not the tell-all, but it's what leads up to that test as well that can provide the officer a probable cause to make an arrest. But in the meantime, we're getting officers certified in ARIDE certification and exploring the option of getting officers as a DRE certified, drug recognition expert, which will assist us in evaluating people that are stopped that potentially may be under the influence of cannabis.
So it sounds like it's not quite as definitive as the alcohol tests that have been around a while.
That's correct. So the alcohol test, if they take the breathalyzer test, if the arrestee chooses to, it's a definitive result right there and then based upon the blood alcohol content. It's a little bit more involved when it comes to cannabis, THC, but it's certainly something that we are, and all police departments are, looking into and figuring out how we're going to get that done. The road safety is very important, and I think that with these these training programs at the Connecticut Police Academy, the ARIDE training, I think we're going to be in good shape to be able to detect someone under the influence.
Thank you.
This might be for Captain Harkins or for Catherine. So edibles are a part of the legal form of marijuana in Connecticut now. Can you just kind of go through in broad strokes what an edible does and maybe more importantly does not look like in Connecticut? Catherine or?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of tough to say right now. I know a lot of the regulations in terms of marketing are kind of up to consumer protection to approve different brands and different images and stuff like that. Even brand names, they don't want anything that looks too much like something that specifically youth are comfortable with. So I think, there's some protections in what we've seen in other states, like when you look at Colorado and California and some of the knockoff like Pop Tarts, but they're Pot Tarts and things like that. So I don't think we'll see quite, those products, but I know for me, one of the big concerns to look out for too is just the number of products that are going to be made at home and sold out of houses and stuff like that, and sold online. When we worry about youth safety, we always worry about what's available through social media and stuff like that. But we shouldn't see, some of the big cartoonish packages that we've seen in other states, which is good. But we will see some of those edibles in the beverages, and those are, of course, metabolized differently in the system than smoking marijuana. And, it should be interesting to see how that unfolds.
Right. Will we see edibles that look like candy? Like the proverbial gummy bear?
I don't know that I specifically saw anything. They talked about, I'm trying to think back to the regulations. It did talk about including marijuana in food and beverages, but I'm not sure how specific it got.
Okay. David?
Yeah, I was going to say, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to say, yeah, I mean, as far as edibles and kind of infused products, I mean, we're going to see the, kind of what everyone else has been seeing, and certainly what we see in the medical cannabis realm. Gummies, which don't necessarily have to take the shape of a bear, but are basically the same kind of consistency. Brownies, cookies, sublingual dissolving tablets. I mean, there's a huge range of edibles and infused products, and I mean, we're going to see them all. I mean, as far as the mechanism, when you smoke the plant or vape it, the effects are very quick, usually within 10-20 minutes. Difference with the edibles is sometimes it can take an hour or two. And, I think when we see people with so-called overdoses or kind of overuse, it's a lot of times with the edibles, because they take some, and a lot of these kind of dosing is not necessarily one cookie. It's a quarter of a cookie or a half of a gummy, and people will take it. They won't get an effect for a half an hour. They'll take more, still no effect. They'll take more, and then at the 2.5 hour mark is really when it kind of kicks in.
All right. Well, to everybody who came to watch, thank you very much. We'd be happy to stick around as long as you want for questions, but if the panelists here don't have anything else to say, I think we can all get back to our evenings. I want to thank you all again for taking a few minutes out of your evening and doing this, especially staff. It's the end of a long day. And then all of our volunteers. It is what makes this community great, that we have so many people willing to step up and help out in these types of tasks. So with that, I am going to call the hearing closed and bid you all a good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Bruce.